Welcome, everybody. I'm Kate Houston, dating and love coach, and I'm so excited to bring to you today a beautiful woman born in India who settled in England, Jonita D'souza, who is a feminist lifestylist, an author and creatress of Exploring Femininity, assisting modern-day busy women who struggle with burnout, overwhelm, and body love to reconnect with their feminine and sensual energy that is so much more fulfilling, nurturing, and pleasurable. And she does this with tantric arts, and so they can create the lifestyle that is full of joy and pleasure. Jonita is a certified life coach, NLP practitioner, master hypnotherapist, and combines the teachings of Indian feminine mysticism and shamanism in her work, facilitating monthly moon circles, online workshops, and sacred feminine retreats. Welcome.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here and creating this space for such an important conversation for these times. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you. There are so many women that when we were talking before and getting to know each other and really finding that one of the things that is the secret to a man's heart is when a woman is really fully like in presence with herself and grounded and accepting of herself. But we wanted to talk a little bit about what happens when we're not that way.
Yeah.
So what if we disown parts of ourselves, or we have that shadow? What happens? Where does that start? Were we always separate?
Yeah, this is really interesting and specifically very triggering when we come into a relationship with men, and our intimate relationships just put the mirror right on our face to what are those parts of ourselves that we have disowned. And I like to say in the work that I do is that there is a very slight thin line between the shadow aspect of ourselves and the dark feminine aspect of ourselves. And the dark feminine aspect of ourselves is what I feel that we women have disowned due to a lot of reasons. And I want to clarify, the shadow is usually those unhealthy feminine traits, where you feel unworthy and all of those
sort of toxic that doesn't support. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, those unhealthy feminine. However, the dark feminine is this beautiful, fertile ground. The dark feminine is pretty much this aspect of you that wants to become conscious, that wants to come into your consciousness, into your awareness, and you know that, but you still keep running away from that. And I think we all can resonate with this aspect.
Yes. So it's almost like it's a cocoon of wanting to be allowed to crystallize and create.
Yeah, and in the more I have worked with women, what I understood is like there was a really simple pattern in my life and in many other women that I work with, that there are moments of darkness in our lives that comes up on a very regular basis. The feminine is the dark. The yin is the dark, and we women are cyclic. When we go through our periods, we go through this dark phase. Like think of how we feel literally 2 days before our periods. We are ready to kill people around, and we know, and yes, and we know the truth that is bubbling inside of us, all the things that we should do but we are not doing, and all the things that we should have communicated, and where we are not owning ourselves, and what we are not doing and being to ourselves. All of these things just come up, and it happens in a regular basis. And what I've noticed is that including me, I had a long pattern of running away from these emotions and numbing it. I call it a pattern of self-abuse, where we go into emotional eating, we go into excessive shopping or binging on alcohol or watching Netflix or whatever. We're doing whatever, or even medicating. We do whatever to not listen to those parts and aspects of ourselves. and continue numbing, and then the days pass by and suddenly we become lighthearted, and we allow that phase to pass, but then it comes back again and the cycle continues, whether you're bleeding, and if you're not bleeding, then the new moons are those times. So as a woman, it is really important to look into our dark aspect and own that part, because that's our true nature. However, what has become is that the society that we live in, it's kind of terrorized the dark.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody takes, I mean, even you just using the word dark, I'm sure the first thought is negative that people say, rather than it being supportive and exclusive for you and intimate with you.
Yeah, that's so correct. In fact, 4 years ago, when I started doing dark feminine retreats, what happened was I got a lot of backlash from even the personal development and spiritual communities that, no, you shouldn't be talking about the darkness, you should be concentrating on your light. And a lot of women were like, oh, okay, this sounds like some dark magic or something. But then there was also a part of women who exactly knew what I was, talking into, and then my work began in this field. And what I like to say is that darkness is, we all come from the dark. If you think about it, our mother's womb is dark.
Yes, cocooned in there.
Yeah, it's a dark, beautiful place. When we go into a creation mode, we go into a place of void, and that's dark.
That's that nothingness, right? The nothingness of space and allowance.
Yeah, so the dark side that we have is not our evil side. It's just a space that we have inside of us that speaks to our true personal powers, our deep desires of creation. And we are, as women, very scared to own that. We are. So that's the part that we have disowned ourselves. So I like to say that your dark feminine is the promise of your power, personal power. And we know those voices that, no, I shouldn't be making this decision. I shouldn't be meeting this man. I shouldn't be behaving this way. I shouldn't be doing this, but I still do this. So that's the disowned part of ourselves that I want to refer to as the dark feminine.
Oh, so it's so interesting. So if we're realizing that we are stuffing or avoiding feelings, what are we trying to do? Even though it sounds like when whatever we're doing to protect ourselves, it's not working, but why do we go there and decide just to cut off the feelings, when wouldn't it make sense to just naturally want to feel them all?
Yeah. As I mentioned before, that we have been conditioned that the dark is bad. We have been conditioned since centuries. In fact, women have been conditioned that looking into your darkness means that, you might become too much of yourself. What if you just, start talking about your deep, dark desires or longings and like the real you? If you start showing your real you, maybe people will not like you. Maybe you will come up as wanting too much, wanting to be too much, wanting to have too much. And we have all these preconceptions. Maybe you feel like you're not even worthy. So we've got a lot of patterning and conditionings that we've picked up, not only, like nowadays, but it's just there in our psyche. And what I like to say is that it is very easy for us to recognize our patterns of self-abuse. We do that. And what happens is when we go into this self-abuse, that is when we do not listen to those whispers of our feminine, then we know what happens in intimate relationships. All our triggers are up and around.
Light bulbs all over, right? Just bing. Yes.
Yeah. And then, we expect, it happened to me for a really long time that I was wanting my husband to feel that void in me. And the truth was that I did not want to face what was really there. What was really there is that I wanted to, leave my corporate job. What was really there is that I was hating my lifestyle of, busy. What was really there is that I was just too bored and lost in life, not knowing what I really wanted, what feels good, not knowing what I'm doing, for who I'm doing, and all of that. and it usually used to come out as, oh, you don't love me, you don't understand me.
Right.
And yeah, and of course he did not understand me because I didn't understand myself.
Yeah. I love that you're really saying that we just move away from those because we don't, it's just the pattern, and that questioning, that curiosity, the what is going on is the doorway perhaps into your dark feminine, to understand it, to just ask the questions, to be revealed the answers. And so what does that like reclaiming that part of you look like when you want to bring yourself into and wholly embrace that dark feminine in you?
Yeah, as we spoke about, a lot of women are unconsciously repelled to this aspect because we know deep inside that this will open a box of Pandora. This will make us look into, especially when we go into the work of the dark feminine, and in tantric rituals, we do it, tantric and Taoist arts, we do it through breathwork, sound, movement, and all of those embodiment practices, where we are very aware in our psyche that we will be asked to face our repressed anger, repressed anger specifically. So what I have noticed is a lot of us women are angry within, like deep rooted angerness is there, and we just know that if we access that deep space in our body, the darkness, all of that anger is going to come out, and then God knows, maybe the world will not like it, or maybe I will not be able to
How will
hold
I
myself.
handle it even?
Yeah,
Yourself, right?
yeah.
That is so true, because, we're taught to be good little girls, sweet, not to have the full breadth of emotions, that we're, boxed to have a certain collection of that's acceptable. So if we speak up or we seem a bit, people could say that we're bossy when we're actually just being direct. So all those things. And I love that you really touch on anger and rage, because that is so true. I see that so much with clients too, where there's so much intellect trumping and stuffing anger. And I did that too. My
Yeah,
little
me too.
girl was
We all can
mad. She
relate.
was pissed off. And I had to have a conversation of like, what do you need to do? And she got to have a huge tantrum, actually. Let's just put it that way, to release all this, just to release the emotions, embodying it. And then it was, then in the tiredness and the body's worn out of letting it out, the wisdom was revealed. She could hear the message from God. That was her fight. Let's put it that way. Everybody has a different, whatever it is. And you get gifted in that moment, I think, of when you're finally, and I'm sure what your processes are, that you walk women through this ritual and the retreats that allows them to release anger or whatever else they need to read, depression, sadness, grief. Then I think grief is another one that people don't understand the layers and many definitions to.
Yeah, there is this anger, and then beneath the anger usually there is sadness, and that's what I have discovered, is there's a lot of sadness. And oftentimes, you don't have to have a traumatic childhood to have these emotions. You can have a perfect childhood. I had a perfect childhood, like I would like to say that. And but still I just didn't know what was this all anger and sadness all about. I would burst into tears every time, like there's an argument between me and my husband, and I realized later that it was me who was angry with myself, and he was just trying to respond to whatever I was showing up as. So it's a very confusing dynamic between men and women if we as women do not take charge of this aspect of our psyche, of our feminine psyche.
And when we take in and become responsible for our wholeness, our integration, our acceptance, our self-empathy, there's a centered grace and groundedness, I think, in us, that's what we then emanate. We don't have that separateness. There's an unconsciousness to it almost, and how that's radiating and vibrating. And when you have that grace and centeredness, that's going to attract a healthy commitment-minded man, somebody who's really grounded and wants to build and co-create something with you.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. And when we are bringing ourselves to wholeness, then what we are doing is also allowing the other person to be whole. So in that ways, we can, go into radical intimacy of like truth, like I have my truth and this is true for me, and you have your truth and that's true for you. And we can agree or disagree, but we can still love each other because love has no conditions on it. But I have to first love myself. So the practical aspect and reclamation also looks like not wronging those emotions and thoughts as and when they come up, but then becoming really curious, like, oh, wow, I'm feeling a lot of anger, or I'm feeling a lot of shame or guilt. Okay, so let's get curious, like not judging the emotion, not judging yourself.
We're stopping and resisting, right? That resistance is going to make it worse.
Yeah. It's like, you're breathing in, but you're not exhaling. So you're like, you cannot relax.
I love that you just said that, because I think that's critical. If you can explain that a little bit, what the difference is between breathing and exhaling, because I think there's something beautiful in that the women watching will be blown away by.
Yeah, so we have this tendency of, like when we are in conversation, or let's say with ourselves, we know what we are going through, and we keep bottling ourselves, through a lot of variety of emotions, and we only want to show our good side. Yeah, so I like to use the metaphor, like you just imagine just taking deep inhales, and you're just full, and suddenly when someone triggers you a little bit, you're like, you just blow out, and that's not how we breathe. Breathing is like you really allow the space to go in, and then allow the space, the breath to come out. So it's an exchange with life itself. And we are not in this gracious exchange with the gift of life. Our breath, this is the nectar of life, as they say in Taoism, is the nectar of life. And what we're doing is we're just holding on to it because we are just scared to face it ourselves.
I love that breath is nectar of life. And for women who people have heard of, yes, you can breathe in 4, hold, breathe out. Maybe they've heard of 1 or 2 things, but what is it about the breath and intention with breath that actually changes us? Because some people think, how could something just with our breath? Really? Like, come on. So there is, though. We've seen it transmute people. What is it about that causes us to really shift with breath?
Yeah, firstly, it brings us back into our body. And when we do that, so I like to always suggest, like when we breathe and when we are going into intentional breath, then use touch. So literally use our hands in our body. So we just know, we get to in our psyche, we understand that we are here for ourselves. We are safe. We are here for ourselves. And that really calms down our vagus nerve and all those, tensed muscles, that we can take a breath, and in this moment everything is fine. And when we recognize that, then we are able to respond rather than react, and that's when changes occur.
I love that. It's just that small decision, intention, choice, pause even for a few seconds to breathe, center, and respond, or decide that you need to wait to respond, versus the impulse that is often from the wound, right? Or that separate part where we're not integrated yet, where it is kind of wanting to come up. I think those impulses are opportunities to heal.
Exactly. And many times the response that we may feel is non-action, that no, don't respond, just be in you, in stillness. So, and what I would also like to emphasize is that if a woman is like really resonating with all of this that we're talking, then really ask for support, because there is not much we can do. We can do a lot by ourselves, but then when we identify that we are in a situation that we cannot do this, and we are noticing patterns to be repetitive, then we do as women require space holding. This is our nature. This is what is inherent to feminine. we blossom very much well and beautifully, and when we are in community with other women. That's what ancients knew, women looking after women. And what we do is that we expect that from our man. That's not his inherent nature. He can be caring and loving, but then but we women should have space for women in our lives so that we feel nourished and nurtured and held, and then we show up to the man in our full reclamation, in our full essence.
I love this because we feel isolated a lot of the times, or nobody think nobody else feels this way or has this struggle or has this challenge. And, you know, we're all part of the human condition.
Yes.
And part of womanhood. So there probably is somebody or many somebodies who are exactly where you've been, or are maybe, like I like to say, there are some people that are maybe further ahead in their evolution and learning, and some that are further behind. And one of the best things is when you're stuck is to be able to support somebody else, and then you break through wherever you're stuck. It's that community and support. You know, it's almost like evolutionary, generational, rather than by age, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I and you know for sure, and so many of our friends, that, you know, we needed that help and support. We didn't get here, and, you know, we are not speaking from the space that, okay, I figured it all out by myself. Yeah. Yes, that was there, a part of it, but then a large part was being held in support, who were there for us and showing us the mirror of like, okay, you've got to see this.
Oh, I love this. I love this. This is so good. So when women want to begin the reclaiming process, do you have a tip or tool or one thing that they might put into practice that they could take from our interview today?
Yeah, so there can be many ways, but what I like to usually say is that do certain kind of womb breathing practices. These are very useful. And I like to also infuse a lot of embodiment. So the shame dance is something that I like to incorporate, that, you know, you put up some good playlist of music and then dance your emotions, and with intention. We do dance, but then this dance is different. You use your intention that, okay, this is so heavy. This is, I don't know what to do. I'm going to just move my body, and I intend to feel what I need to feel after this. And do this because we come out, things transmute, emotions, you know, so it's energy in motion. So we're not feeling stuck. And most importantly, we are not taking this out on our loved ones.
Right. And when they finish this dance, what did most of the women feel after that?
Many times it's a sense of just coming back to the body, to just like, okay, because emotion only lasts for 90 seconds, up to 90 seconds, and then the rest is our story around it. So when we are dancing, we are actually dissolving the story. We are like, okay, this is the story that I'm creating. Let's just move it through our body, and that's it. And the emotion is already gone. It's done its thing and it's gone, but we hold on to the stories. So a lot of women feel the lightheartedness that, okay, this emotion does not define me. Who I am right now is this me feeling very alive and accelerated in my breath, in my sweat, in, you know, in all of the parts of my body. And that's a sense of rejuvenation.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful, and something anybody can do at any point in time. And
Yeah.
put that focus on it, to really just allow the body to embody and release the story, or whatever they need to transmute the story or work with it. Because sometimes they might have to do many dances, I suppose,
Yes,
right?
you exactly know. Yeah, there are plenty of other practices, but I think this is just, you know, feasible at all times.
I love that. And I'm a big fan of dancing, so I love this as a tip. I know you also have a beautiful gift for everybody that we're going to have linked below this interview. Will you please share some details about what it is?
Yes, exactly. So this is in correlation with our conversation. So I want to give a training that's called Dark Feminine Alchemy. So this is a recording of one of circles that I had led, and we go through a process of how to identify and then what to do with that emotion. So I lead you into an embodiment practice. So if you're curious in our conversation, then you can go ahead and try it for yourself.
Oh, I love it. It's going to be linked below. definitely go grab a hold of that and take advantage of embodying and freeing and releasing and grounding and finding that grace center point within you. I love this. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your heart, your magic of what you know and have learned and discovered to allow you to live in such a free and grace-filled and feminine way that so many women are desiring to tap into, and that you've given them this wonderful gift of a way to do so.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And you do a very beautiful job in asking the right questions. So it's just a beautiful flow. And it's like, two girlfriends talking about most important things in life. So I truly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.